You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Analese.
This is Rob, and we are your nerd best friends.
Nerdwatching is back, and this time we list our favorite films and television shows of the 2010s.
Get ready to dive into the ultimate geeky goodness with Nerd Best Friends, available on all your favorite podcast platforms. Your support keeps our nerdy hearts beating, so smash that subscribe or follow button on every device you own. Want to go even further? Join our Patreon family or drop us a one-time donation on Venmo. Let's geek out together.
Welcome back, nerds. Rob, this is one of my favorites every season.
Yes, and here's what's exciting about it to me. Yes, it's always a fun time. But as I was going through TV shows and movies from the 2010s, I was like, ooh, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't watch. I don't know if it's just because I've been getting older or busier or what it is, but I'm like, man, there's a big list of nerdy TV shows and stuff that I'm like, I missed this. But what I'm also excited about is it's only 2024, which means we're done. Like, we can't do the 2020s yet for another 6 years, which means we get to go back next time. Where did we start this series in the 80s?
We started in the 80s, so next season we'll go to the 70s,
which I'm very excited about, to go back and talk about like what weird reruns and stuff we were watching as little kids that we still remember and have fond feelings for.
And it'll be interesting to see how much has been like revisited, rebooted, copied from, because we talked about that a lot last episode. So
that's another great point I hadn't thought of yet. Yes. So I guess we got to do a season 5 now.
It was happening anyways. So there. It was really interesting is what you mentioned as absolute yes. So much that I didn't watch. This is really the decade where television really changed, with the streaming services suddenly bringing out their own content and their own shows. And now when you watch the Emmys and the Oscars, it's Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max. These companies are getting more nominations than like NBC and CBS, because now they're producing the content more than your typical cable television was. So it's a really interesting decade to look back, even though we're only 4 years, almost 5 years out of it. It's pretty bonkers to see how much content is out there.
And really, and we'll get to it in a minute, but looking at the movies from this decade, it's like, oh, this was the decade of the nerd for superheroes, 100%. For Star Wars, fantasy. It's just insane. So 100%. Very fun decade to look at.
And we will get to that. But first, let's get some nerd mail.
Nerd mail. All right, Analese, what do you have from the nerd mailbag this time?
We have so much nerd mail to go over, particularly over our episode on the cult cars in pop culture. Los805 sent us a list. So I'm going to start with that. First one is Mr. Miyagi's classic car collection in The Karate Kid.
Okay.
We missed talking about that in our regular episode and the bonus episode.
Wax on, wax off.
So check out this list. It's a 1941 Chevrolet Light Delivery, a 1959 Nash Metropolitan 1500 Coupe, a 1947 Ford Super Deluxe Convertible, which should sound familiar. I'll tell you why in a second, and a 1951 Cadillac Sedan. Mr. Miyagi was ballin' with the classic cars.
Okay. Did the listener happen to give us any trivia on whose actual real life car collection that was, or if they had brought some in? Because I wonder if they just went into like Jay Leno's garage for that scene or something.
It's very likely, but I don't know if Jay Leno had his garage in the 80s when this movie was filmed. More likely than not, it was one of those companies that you can say, I need these cars. Because there's a couple of companies in Hollywood that make their money off of restoring cars for films. We need this era vehicles. They go get them out of the junkyards or out of their collections, fix them up and have them ready for films. But the second part that Los 805 let us know is that the car, when we get to the point in the movie where Daniel gets his pick of cars, he picks the 1947 Ford Super Deluxe convertible. And for our listeners who are paying attention, that is the same car as Grease Lightning in Grease. Now, I don't think they're the same year, but it is the same car, which is why it looks so familiar. We were going over why it looks so familiar. It's because it's that yellow car that Danielson drives. 18 or 19-year-old Ralph Macchio looking like he's a 10-year-old driving that big old boat of a vehicle.
It sure does look awfully familiar to a Back to the Future car, too. Is that Doc's car in Back to the Future that he takes Lorraine to the dance in?
Let's see.
Because it looks awful similar.
Let's look. It would be too early, I think, because he goes back to the 50s.
Right. So if it was a 40s car, that would make sense.
Doc Brown's car is a 1949 Packard Custom 8 convertible. It looks very much like this Ford Deluxe.
It looks very, very lot similar. Like the one that he takes his mom to the dance in.
It's the convertible piece and the front end of it. The grille is a bit different than the Ford Deluxe.
Oh my God. And what did you say the pickup was? Is a Ford? What year is that Ford pickup?
Chevrolet Light Delivery, 1941.
Oh, yep. That's what it was. Okay. Yep. 49, you said?
41.
41. Okay.
So even in the 80s, that was an old car.
Yes, because my dad had a 39 that he restored, and it looked very similar to that low bed with the wood tailgate and stuff like that.
And that huge grill at the front, right? That grill is huge. So we also got from Los 805 that we missed is the famous red Ferrari in Ferris Bueller. Such a pinpoint part of that.
It's such a good part of that plot with putting it on the blocks and running it in reverse.
And then the two the valet guys just up in the air catching air and their hair's all waving in slow motion.
I think of that every time I drop my car off to a valet service. I'm like, well, have fun, fellas.
You can take it for a joyride. At least it comes back.
What's going on?
Some other nerd mail, just some other things that were brought up in that episode. Hasbro apparently announced at Comic-Con that they made a Transformers out of the Surfer Boy pizza van, which I think is hilarious.
You sent me that. It looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks really great. And then thanks to intern Joan, we now know that the live action Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine was a 1972 Vauxhall Bedford CF. I have never heard of this company or this car, but she did the research for us. Thanks, intern Joan.
Okay, well, thanks, Dr. Joan.
Vauxhall Bedford?
I thought it was a VW bus.
Same, but I guess it is too boxy to have been a VW bus. So both of us.
I mean, it is bigger, right? It like sticks out on the sides more and stuff.
It's boxy as heck.
Okay, right on. I had one from listener Carlos. We were talking about our experience at Sandbox VR in Southern California, which is one of these companies that does the VR experiences. And he sent us a new one in Southern California called Player One VR World. Definitely going off of the Ready Player One theme,
the logo,
the virtual reality world there. This one looks a little different because it is like licensed video games that you would be familiar with. Space Marine 2 is the big thing right now. Everybody's playing and putting up their reels and their reactions and all this kind of stuff. You can go into this Player One VR and play Space Marine. You can play Far Cry. You can play Depths of Osiris, Singularity.
That sounds nice.
There's a Minecraft looking one here. There's Station Zero. I think I've heard of that. Ninja Trials.
I wonder how the ninja one would work. That's interesting. What if you have to actually like kick?
There's a Dragon Tower experience. But this one looks really cool. And also the room looks different as well, because in the VR experience that we went to, it was very empty. There are a couple fans hanging from the ceiling to kind of do some ambiance or whatever. But other than that, it's an empty room with some tape on the floor. Yeah. This one looks like it's almost like a laser tag or a paintball place where there's low and high walls you can hide behind. And I guess there's physical objects in the real world that also exist in the VR. So it's like a whole nother level of advancement.
The room room is way bigger than the sandbox room. It says in the ad for this other one that it's free moving. Now that makes me think of like Grand Theft Auto. And I wonder why Grand Theft Auto wasn't in there, because that would be super fun too. Free roaming to me sounds like when we used to play Halo all on a split screen, only we're all standing in the room together and playing instead.
Gotcha. So if I start taking off to the left and you start taking off to the right, we might be able to get really, really, really far away from each other, even though we're in the same room.
In the same room, yeah. Like we're experiencing a different part of the room itself.
Right, the world.
That freeform idea is really interesting. Now we're going to have to do like a VR weekend, another sandbox, and then go check out this one.
I just found out today that I can be a space marine for real life. So yes,
it's happening.
What? What?
It is happening. What?
I can go like call everyone. I can speak in a deep voice and call everyone brother and shoot Tyranids with a giant gun.
Okay, if you do not speak in that voice the entire time we're in that VR room, I'm going to be sorely disappointed.
I would be shocked if anyone walks into that room and they're like, "Hey, can I go shoot the bugs?" No, you got to be like, "To me, brother, we will scourge these heretics for the Emperor."
It's going to be great. I can't wait. Well, thank you for all that nerd mail. Nerds, keep it coming.
I love it. They wait for nerd mail. Let's get this community engagement. Come on.
Heck yeah. Podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. I've been looking forward to this one, Rob. It's time for Talk Nerdy to Me.
We got a game today.
Yes, we do. We are going to read each other poorly explained movie plots as generated by ChatGPT and see if we can guess. I think we each have 3, so.
I brought my 3 to have you guess. We didn't check ahead of time, so it'll be funny to see if we chose some of the same movies.
And so I tried to think of movies that Rob would know of, but maybe not necessarily would pick. So that was our only parameter. Like, it's got to be a pretty popular film.
I tried to choose popular films that I thought would not be the ones you would have chosen.
This is going to be great. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
I want you to go first. It was your idea. You could see if you could stump me. My mind is ready.
It's let me say first, I don't know that it's really about stumping. I don't want to stump you. I want it to be so obscure and you still figure out what it is.
Well, obviously I want to figure it out, but
yeah. Okay. All right, here we go.
1.
A pink-clad trendsetter with a flair for accessorizing infiltrates a top-tier academic institution to rekindle a past romance. Armed with an arsenal of beauty tips and an uncanny ability to decode fashion-related cues, she stumbles upon a convoluted plot involving dubious legal dilemmas and unexpected courtroom revelations.
Okay, I have a guess right away, but a few others cross my mind, and it's always hard because you know how terrible I am at remembering like the name of things. Yes. So I'm like, oh, that one right there, that one. So it's not Beverly Hills Chihuahua. Okay, I've got 2 guesses.
Okay.
I've got 2 guesses.
And I want to say to the listeners, we are not using our phones. We are not Googling.
No.
I really am tempted to see if there's even a movie called Beverly Hills Chihuahua. And if there's not, then we should make one because that's hilarious.
Yes.
We'll look it up later. Try to guess this movie. Use your brain power for this movie.
So the one I think it is Legally Blonde.
You got it.
All right.
What were your other guesses?
When it started going to like the like unraveling a complex plot, and there was something about it kept going back to the legal thing. So I'm like Legally Blonde. But then something in there triggered me to be like, ooh, what about My Cousin Vinny?
Ooh, that could have been a good one. But the pink class should have. Yeah.
As soon as you said like the pink and the fashion stuff, I was like, oh, I could picture the movie poster, but my mind kept saying like, that's Beverly Hills Chihuahua.
Your turn.
At some point, we have to look up the movie posters to Beverly Hills Chihuahua and Legally Blonde, and I bet they're the same movie poster.
They might be the same. I mean, Legally Blonde has her in like a pink skirt suit outfit with her dog on a pink leash.
Oh, that's
probably what you're thinking.
That's what I was thinking of. Okay, yep. Mine are short. I got like a 1-sentence elevator pitch for you.
Oh,
so
okay, all right.
A desk jockey with a side hustle in computer hobbies follows a group of sunglasses enthusiasts into a complicated vitamin store.
I should have made mine one line too. That's great. This is The Matrix.
Yes.
Yes. Now, you had me at first. What was it? A disc jockey?
A desk jockey, right?
I was thinking
cubicles.
100 other things, but you got me by.
Was it sunglasses enthusiasts or was it the vitamin store?
The vitamin store.
Because vitamin store was very funny to me.
It's very actually true, ironically. So, all right,
great. We're 1 and 1. We're 1 for 1. This is great.
2.
4 preteens set off on an epic quest to locate a poorly kept secret that's less about treasure and more about existential dread. Their journey involves sidestepping the wrath of disturbingly large canine and navigating a labyrinth of bizarrely profound conversations about the nature of friendship and childhood fears.
I've got my guess.
Okay.
I've got a backup, but of course I can't remember the name of the backup. All right, here we go. Goonies.
Ooh, that's a good one, but no.
Oh,
so
no.
let me You remember what your B guess is?
Yes, it's the vampire one.
Oh, the Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys.
There's no lost item in the Lost Boys. The boys themselves are lost. This is Stand By Me.
Oh, of course. Yes, of course. Of course you would choose that one.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. I tried to give you hints, but what I would pick a
No, I would have known that.
movie, right?
All right, so I'm 1-1. Your second one. A captain finds his long-lost son while an irate guy with fabulous hair and a thing for worms kills his best friend.
A thing for worms.
Don't focus on the word part because if you haven't seen the movie, that's not going to be obvious to you.
A captain
finds his long-lost
son
while an irate guy with fabulous hair and a thing for worms kills
What's
his
unfortunate
best
for
friend.
me is the fabulous hairs making me think of White Goodman in Dodgeball. And I know it's not that because there's no lost son in that movie. A captain who's found his long lost son and an irate guy. Captain who's a captain. What kind of captain? This could be spacey. This could be like a ship. This could be an airplane. No, I think you got me. What is it?
All right. This one is Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
See, my brain was going Star Trek, but I kept thinking like maybe it's a boat captain. What boat captain is? Yeah, definitely not a film that I saw, but I should have guessed something in the Star Trek.
You know, what's that dude's name? Roberto Mandoval with his...
Oh, yes. Fabulous hair. Yes. That's a good one.
In that movie, there's this like absolutely wild scene where he takes like a worm and puts it in somebody's ear and it eats their brain. It is very like out of pocket for Star Trek. Well, it's a shocking scene that if you've seen the movie, you're like, oh yeah, that one part where the dude murdered somebody with a brain worm.
That sounds horrifying and just like a movie that I would watch.
And that's the one where Spock dies, where he kills his best friend. Last one.
Number 3.
All right, I'm 1-1. This is I'm either going out a winner or I'm going out a loser.
I think you'll get this one.
3.
An unusually straightforward man with a knack for being in the right place at the right time inadvertently becomes a historical footnote by bumbling through major events while maintaining an inexplicable talent for improbable success.
That's got to be Forrest Gump.
That is Forrest Gump. You got it.
My next one also was difficult to do because I felt like it kept giving me things that were too obvious. Okay. So this might be very obtuse. You'll have to tell me if it just was so out there it's not fair.
Okay.
Or listeners can. Your final one is, a man who can't stay dead and his friends set each other on fire, storm a castle to retrieve a kidnap victim.
This is The Princess Bride.
Yes! Well done!
This was so much fun.
That was fun. And we both got 2 out of 3. Incredible.
And nerds, you want to try to stump us? Send us your talk nerdy to me synopses from ChatGPT or your own if you want to come up with your own and try to stump us. Podcast at nerdbestfriends.com. We're looking forward to seeing what you come up with. And here we go to the nerd watching, Rob. Right into it, the 2010s. We're going to start with television shows.
Television shows in the 2010s, I noticed that everything on my list is from the second half of the decade.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. I was like, this one. And then I'm looking at it and the earliest one is 2015. And this was the NBC show Constantine. It only lasted maybe one season. It was an interesting situation with that one because Constantine is a DC comic. And it is one of those comics that kind of rides the line between DC regular and like the Dark Horse kind of more edgy imprint that they do, because Constantine is this detective, but he's also a magic user and he's fighting, demon incursions that come into our world and this kind of stuff. It's always very bloody and culty and sacrifice, and magic has a consequence or a price on your soul kind of story. But we were having all of these other DC comic shows on the Warner Brothers network, right?
Right.
You had The Flash and Green Arrow and those kinds of shows. But this one lived outside of that on a completely different network. I don't know how the licensing and stuff like that works. but it was a better, like it didn't have that kind of Berlantiverse formula and camp to it. It was a little bit different. It had a different formula and camp, but it wasn't exactly the same.
It was darker and grittier than the WB shows, right?
It was, and the actor guy who did it, which of course I won't remember the name for because I'm terrible at it, was fantastic. He was intense when he needed to be intense and had great comedic timing for the levity of it. Constantine, if you've read DC comics and like that character has shown up in some of your bigger storylines and crossovers and stuff and thought like, oh, should I go back and read a bunch of Constantine comics from like the 80s and 90s? No, probably don't do that, but you could watch the season of this show and it's pretty fun.
Is this different? Weren't there films with Keanu Reeves and Constantine?
There is a Constantine film by Keanu Reeves.
And they're not related.
They are related, and it is supposed to be that character in the Keanu Reeves movie, but it's nothing like that character or those comics at all. It's one of those.
Okay.
You know how they were making comic book movies in like the 90s and you'd get the name, but you weren't telling a comic book story.
Especially with DC, right? I feel like DC just kept flinging their characters to the wall to see what would stick, whether it was television series or a movie. So I think they just keep flinging to see what can they get to be successful, and they just really weren't successful with much at all.
Yeah, it was basically like they wanted to, who knows how it works, but somebody had a screenplay for a cool Monster Hunter-y movie, and they said, oh, what if we like slap the DC brand on here and called it this? But I would not say that it lines up very well with the comic.
Yeah, okay.
And it definitely isn't really the same character that we're seeing in the Constantine TV show from 2015.
I think most of mine are later as well, but also I didn't put the years in my notes next to mine. What I'll do is start with two that they're really more pop culture than nerdy, but there are nerdy isms around it. So I'm going to start with New Girl, which is a widely popular comedy show and was on for a lot of years. But what I find nerdy about it is there's tons of references to board games and D&D and just throughout the show with these characters. And the other one I'm going to talk about real quick is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because it is a comedy show in the same vein as the ones we love, and it is written by and starring some people from the state. So for me, the state is like the nucleus of a lot of the comedy that I like. All of those actors and all become writers, and this is the state. This is part of their extended influence on popular television. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is funny. I think it actually just ended or is just ending this season. I can't remember which because I don't follow it. I watch it after seasons on, what is it, like on Netflix or whatever. But it's a funny show. Very popular, both of those comedies. Not a lot more to say about them. They're, again, as you mentioned a lot, I follow a lot more pop culture. For me is nerdy. I'm nerdy in my pop culture than them actually being nerd shows.
Now, I have been recommended New Girl a few times that people think I like it, probably because of those nerd references. Am I right in that this is the show that has at least one musical episode every season or multiple musical episodes?
I don't think they have a musical episode at all.
Okay, then never mind. I'm thinking of something completely different that does a lot of musical stuff.
If they do, I mean, I've seen the whole series once and I watched it very late. I was very late to that. I think during the pandemic. During the pandemic, I was like, I need something to watch. And I started watching New Girl. And I think you would like it. It's hilarious. The characters are zany, but also realistic. I think you would enjoy it. I don't recall there being a musical episode, but there is an episode that the great late Prince, who loved the show so much he begged to be on it, so he makes a cameo and there's a whole episode central around him, and there's music in that episode, but I don't recall there being a musical episode.
Okay, listeners, what is the New Girl like show that has like a musical in every episode or like a music number in every episode? Because now I'm freaking out.
Okay, wait, a music number in every episode is
something like that. I hear it's very musical,
but there's not a musical episode.
Okay. Well, it must be something else.
This might be the one you're talking about.
Help us. And then the other one that you mentioned was Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is a hilarious show. I love Andy Samberg. Andy Sam.
Yeah.
Berg. Yep. And that's a funny one because that is a show that I have exclusively seen through social media. I have seen I've never watched a full episode, but I have watched so many hours of content from that show on YouTube,
on Reels and stuff like
or
that,
Instagram Reels or whatever. And fantastic, great characters, funny jokes, and like fantastic deliveries by some very well written and very well thought out characters. Archetypes are very different in that show.
I think the most popular reel is the one where he's got a lineup. Andy Samberg's character has a lineup and he's standing there with the witness and trying to identify. And she's like, I didn't see his face. I only heard him singing Backstreet Boys. So he has them go down the line singing Backstreet Boys and they get through a whole chorus. And he's like, oh my gosh, I have chills. And she goes, number 5, that's who killed my brother.
My brother?
I forgot about that part.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yes, it's that kind of comedic timing. And I'm a big fan of Andy Samberg, too. What you got next?
Oh, this is another, in keeping with our theme of DC Comics. This one was part of that Berlanti verse in the WB network. This was not the Flash. This was not the Green Arrow, but this was an absolutely wild take that they did called Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow grabs some of the most obscure DC villains and C-tier heroes, puts them on a time-traveling spaceship, and go. It is
together?
Yes. So it's got like Pyro the flamethrower guy, and it's got like Mr. Freeze from the Batman villains, and then it's got some other like ninja chick from whatever. Like it's all over the place. It's like it's almost like they looked at the DC catalog and said, hey, DC, we're going to take a risk on this show. What are some characters that you are not using and have no plans to use for the next 5 years? And they just like looked at the very bottom of their roster and went, well, here you go. And they just, it is nuts. It has superhero tropes, which I love. It has a big Sliders vibe because they're traveling through time, space, and dimension. And it's literally anything goes. It's like, oh, today we're in the Revolutionary War. Today we're in an alternate future where the Vietnam War was won by America and we took over Asia. Like, it's just wild. Today there's dinosaurs, and it all has this DC superhero kind of tie-in, and it is charming. It's wonderful because there's nothing else like it. It's not a superhero show. It's not Quantum Leap. It's just comic book bonkers.
My brain can't get past is you have all these villains and heroes on the same ship. Why aren't they just duking out on the ship the entire time? Like they have to land. Is it some untold rule that they can't? You're on this side of the ship and you're on the west side and the east side of the ship and you can't cross. The common ground is in the middle where the kitchen is. But then once you land, like
because they're all like, I'm trying to remember if it's because they're trying to like the next leap will be the leap home. Gosh. But they might be able to just go home anytime. But they were all people that like were having struggles in their life and needed to get away for something. I recommend this show for the comic book zaniness. Like,
okay, all right.
You know when you walk into the comic book store and you're looking at the table of like what's in there today, and you can't help but look at some comic that has like the Hulk riding a Tyrannosaurus Rex and like Detective Chimp swinging from the thing. It's like that. It's like, what the heck is going on here? That's this show.
That's amazing. I've never even heard of this show.
Yes, DC's Legends of Tomorrow came out in 2016. Strong recommend if you want to just see people taking swings and being silly. It is that silly, joyful, colorful comic book goodness in a show.
Right on. My brain's baffled. I'm going to have to watch it now.
I think you should. I think you might like watch it. And Sarah too, like watch it just together. Just be like, do you ever catch this show? It's a comic book show, but let's check it out. And just be like, what the hell?
All right. Well, I'll go to my next one, which is based off a comic book. And forgive me for not knowing the year it started, somewhere in the 2010s. I want to talk about The Walking Dead, which became a phenomenon in the 2010s. Now, how it was for me is I didn't watch the show for a long time. It became super popular. Then I started watching it maybe 4 or 5 seasons in. I started watching the first episodes and got into it to the point that I caught up with live television somewhere around, I want to say season 4 or season 5, and then watched them live from there. I didn't like the comic books at all. I thought the comic books were melodramatic to the point of being absurd. I thought the early ones were pretty along those lines of what we know, a little bit of misogyny in the comic books with brainless, big chested women who don't know any better, and lots of SA, and it wasn't the comic books weren't for me. I tried, also very late to the game. And the funny thing is the comic books are still going.
Well, so's the show, isn't it?
Thousands of issues. The show is still on.
The show is like
too.
20 years old now.
I lost track of the show where the comic book and the show met up, and the character Negan was really big, and there's a big murder scene that's controversial, and I thought the show fell off after that. The show did not do a good job of continuing the story. I stopped watching it, and the comic book I think did better, but I stopped reading the comics because I couldn't even get to that point. And then they did the spinoff, The Year of the Walking Dead, which was supposed to be before we meet the main characters, and I thought that was a dud. I really didn't like it. So at some point I just stopped watching it all, but for a while I was week to week live watching The Walking Dead on AMC and really excited about it for a long time.
I thought that I've only read the first volume of The Walking Dead. I thought it was really cool. I like the black and white line art. I like the overall timbre of it and like the reveal of, we are the Walking Dead and that kind of thing was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. I don't know that I need to read anymore because this is a million things. And so I didn't watch the show, but what I understand is the show and the comic both suffer from their success in that they've gone on too long. The story just keeps repeating itself, but in a different place. Some people who are just those absolute like zombie honks and love the zombie makeup and the whole zombie thing and go to zombie parties and dress up like zombies and stuff, like still love it and are, keeping it going. But yeah, that's what I heard too, is it suffered from its own success.
Well, and I think the parts you would really enjoy knowing you, how I know you, is for a lot of seasons in those when it was becoming the phenomenon and really big, is it goes after human nature. It really examines what people would do and the level of like degradation some will fall to when you're in this apocalyptic survival mode, right?
It's asking those questions about humanity like good science fiction does.
Yes. And I think there's some seasons right there, season 2, season 3, season 4, I think you would really enjoy. There were some that were scary as heck. There were some of those episodes that were just horror to the max, which, I like. I struggle with the zombie movies a lot. It's the one thing that really actually truly scares me. I don't know the reason why. I just recently watched it. Avoided the original Tim Curry film from the 80s because all I heard was how horrifying it is. It's not scary at all. Maybe 12-year-old me would have been more scared, but zombies, for some reason, zombies get me. And so there were some that I remember like when I was living in Ohio, working at my doctorate, I would turn it off and TiVo it or whatever and watch it in daylight instead because it was so scary. But then it just falls off. And I also appreciated the first graphic novel set. I thought was really good, but the melodrama and it didn't transfer to me in the comic books in the same way that it did in watching it with live action people. So, but it's a popular show. It's still on, based off a comic book. Lots of people love it. And for those of you who are big fans of Walking Dead, I mean, no disrespect, it just at some point wasn't for me anymore. That's a big one from the 2010s.
My next ones are, as is normal for me, a little bit of a cheat. This one started in 2019, was season 1, and it did have 3 seasons that line up with the 3 books of the trilogy, so it did go into the 2020s a little bit. This is 2019's His Dark Materials, based on the Pullman novel series, which is, the novels are okay. Like the story and the world is an 11 out of 10 idea. The execution of the novels are 7 out of 10. They're okay. They drag at some places. The TV show, which was, I think, an HBO Max thing, took the material and did what we can only do in this day and age with computer generated design and special effects to bring this world to life with its just fantastic landscapes and machineries and transportations. But most importantly, the big premise, or like the overlying premise of this world, is that every human being has a soul or has something inside of them that is like their companion. They wrestle with right and wrong, or you have self-talk in your head to make decisions and things like that. And in this world, that is on the outside of you, and it takes the form of an animal companion that you can talk to. It is your moral compass. It influences you. You when you're making decisions, that's the voice inside of your head, is the voice coming out of this external thing. There's a lot you can read into with people and their personalities based on what kind of animal that is following them around. Another fun thing about this story is it's told from the perspective of teenagers they call them their demons, whose demons haven't settled settled yet. So they keep
Right.
changing shape and being different things based on who the character, like who the person is turning into. The animal will change because they haven't really grown into themselves yet. The show does a fantastic job of showing this. The special effects and the computer generated little animals and stuff are absolutely adorable and awesome. It tells a larger story about religion and conformity and lying to the public for its greater good, and has all kinds of cool stuff. There's witches, there's magic, there's technology. It's an absolutely super, super cool world and story. And this show, there was a movie, I don't know, back in maybe 2002, 2004 with Nicole Kidman in it and stuff.
Right.
This show, by far the best telling of this story and the best representation of this world. It has 3 seasons, and those seasons are just, they're titled the name of the book, and they tell the story of all 3 books. You get the complete story there. Just absolutely well done. 10 out of 10 recommendation for me. His Dark Materials.
I know you mentioned this a few times before, and it's on my watch list. I haven't watched it yet. It looks good. I want to say it's still, is it still, or did it just finish its last season?
Maybe, let's see, it would have been 2019. Then I think they skipped 2021 and 2022. So it's been over for a while.
Oh, okay. Maybe it just popped up on mine because we were talking about it. You know,
I mean,
the
unless
algorithms are listening to us.
It could have skipped 2 years in there during COVID times. Like it could be 2019 and then 2022 and 23. And
also the way these apps, the streaming apps work now, like if there's a flux of people watching it, it'll pop up like it's new, but it's just like in our top 10 today.
Absolutely.
So that might be it. But yeah, I look forward to seeing this one.
I would not be surprised if all these people who are watching the new Lord of the Rings show right now are getting a bunch of advertisements for like, you like this, then you'll like this, and maybe jumping His Dark Materials up.
Well, I'll talk about my next one, which is also late 2010s, right at the end of 2010, and still going on as we are awaiting the 5th and final season of Stranger Things. And Stranger Things is all the boxes, right? They're D&D nerds. It's nostalgia as a kid from the 80s. It is every nerdy reference and remembering what it was like to be a child in the 1980s. Those of us born in the 70s and children of the 80s.
And scary monsters.
Scary monsters, Stephen King-esque storytelling, even the Stranger Things. The first time I saw it, that first title card is very eerily similar to the cover of Needful Things, Stephen King's book. At first I thought we were being trolled and it was being written by Stephen King, but very similar to the Goonies. It takes reference to Back to the Future in it. It's just every nerdy thing you could possibly imagine. One of the best sequences of the last season we had was a D&D montage where they're playing, one of the funny... Yeah, and one of the funny memes is, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd season where some of the kids get girlfriends and they're sitting around with their girlfriends, and you have the one dude just sitting in his wizard costume like, can we just play D&D now? And I remember you hadn't seen it yet and you texted me that meme like, is this legit? I'm like, this is an actual scene from the show. And I know you've kept up with it, and I'm very much anticipating the end of this series. We're going to play possibly Vecna newest edition, not 6th edition, but new edition, and later maybe in 2025. And I was introduced to Vecna not from D&D but from Stranger Things because I'm still newish to D&D, and there's so much good about the show and I love it.
The thing I have learned because of Stranger Things and Dungeons and Dragons and that tie-in is just how nerdy that reference actually is. Because I went back, of course, and I'm like, oh my God, this Vecna season, everybody's about Vecna. Wizards of the Coast themselves are like, oh my gosh, the show is so popular. We got to put out some Vecna stuff. And
they started to.
New stat blocks and mini adventures and all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, I never had any experience with this. I'm going to go back and read the Vecna adventures. They're unreadable. I would rather read an encyclopedia than the block of little tiny 8-point font that these things are written in. Whoa. Anyone who played these adventures back in the early 80s is IQ level 1,000,000 or something, because they give me a headache just looking at the page. It's so dense and so complicated. I can't believe anyone played these adventures, much less got super excited about Vecna when it came up. But danged if it isn't everywhere. And one of the super cool things is 5th edition lasted 10 years. They were wrapping everything up at the end. The last book they put out in the D&D 5th edition was this Vecna adventure. And it is, spoiler alert, it is literally what I always talk about. It is a retelling of the Rod of 7 Parts adventure where you have to go to all these different places in the multiverse to assemble the rod to fight Vecna. And everywhere you go to get the part is from another D&D adventure that they published in the last 10 years.
Interesting.
The 5 years. So you go to Icewind Dale for a part. You go to the Jungles of Chult for a part. You go to Tiamat's lair for a part. You go to Ravenloft, with Strahd to get a part.
Wow.
It's all of that stuff in this giant love letter to 5th edition, culminating in Vecna is pulling the strings all along. I can't wait to play that adventure where we've got our plan as we're moving through our things. And that's what that adventure is. And it's so exciting to me. But yeah, looking it up. Oh my God. I dare you, Analese. I'll send you the digital PDFs that I purchased so that I could read about Vecna. I dare you to read them.
I mean, I'm interested, but I don't want to know too much before we play that game. I don't want to read it and be spoiled, right?
Here's another thing. This is not the Dungeons and Dragons episode, but another thing that they did is in the new Dungeon Master's Guide, there's a whole chapter called D&D Lore, where it takes Vecna, Tiamat, Zaztam, all the big bads, and gives you here's everything you need to know without having to research 50 years worth of stuff.
Right.
Super smart.
Now that I would read. Yes. What's interesting is Stranger Things, it has infused D&D and obviously has created some new fans and bringing fans back to D&D. Their version of Vecna has nothing to do with this D&D story, right? No. They've taken this character and the way they've come about to him being Vecna is completely not
that's the game they're playing.
Yeah.
And it was the same with the Demogorgon, right? The Demogorgon is one of those big classic D&D demon lords. And it's not because it's actually Demogorgon in the show. It's because they were playing the Demogorgon adventure and there was a real monster. They're like, it's the Demogorgon.
It was like the Goonies and Jumanji in that first season where they're playing it and then the kid gets snatched. Yep. I can't wait. I'm sure at some point this season I'll be talking and raving about the final season of Stranger Things. Frank Darabont has come out of TV show retirement to direct 3 episodes of this last season. It's going to be cinematic and
awesome.
Good. Frank Darabont is, you know who he is, right?
And it's always nice when this is going to be the final season because they'll throw the money at it and really knock it out of the park, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be good. You have any more TV shows to talk about?
Great choices, by the way. My last one is also from 2019, and this was something that absolutely influenced the next 5 years at least of television programming. It influenced this entire property, I think, into a new direction. And it also influenced our giant 5-year Dungeons and Dragons campaign that we played level 1 through 20 and on to Vegas. And this was 2019's The Mandalorian.
So good.
It's so stinking good. To take Star Wars, to take Westerns, to take 80s TV show tropes and mash them all together into this super cool episode, or super cool series, is an absolute masterclass. The whole idea was, when does this show take place in the Star Wars canon? Well, it happens after the explosion of the Death Star, so the story continues from there. But also that happened in 1985, and the episodes play like an episode of Chips or A-Team or Knight Rider. It feels like such a natural progression. It could be imagine if this was made in follow-up to the original Star Wars movies, even within the time. Yes. There's still something that you would see there. At least that first season is. Just love it. It really reminded me of Firefly, which I also love, which was a space western, right? Yep. This was kind of your space western as well. Apparently that is a genre that I am an absolute sucker for, because if you've got laser blasters and rocket ships and you've got a twangy western soundtrack behind it, I'm sold. I'm ready.
And they're walking slow motion in a dust bowl in their space marine costumes. Yeah, you're in.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
That first season of The Mandalorian was cinematically thought out, cinematically written. It does have the same timbre and comedic timing of 80s movies and the same seriousness of a high risk situation. Mm-hmm. And it's beautifully cast in the first season. Pedro Pascal was a known actor. I think this really pushed him into pop culture in a way that his other shows didn't. It's just so good. It's so good. You don't even have to be a fan of Star Wars.
I guess
to
not. I mean,
enjoy
this could be something that could draw you into Star Wars. And it was such a cool, like, space western in the first season. And then it really turned and became Lone Wolf and Cub with the little baby Yoda and them going through their adventures together. Even with that pivot, though, it stayed, the quality never faltered. It was just absolutely super cool.
And then everything became a side quest. It was just a show of side quests, second and third seasons. It's so good. My last one really is a shout out to my true crime nerds, because we don't talk a lot about a true crime on this podcast. It's a very popular all the time, but especially
because they talk about it on every other podcast, Analese.
Well, I mean, there's that. Yes, there are a few true crime podcasts that I follow and listen to. I think this one is a Netflix show that they tried a series of, and I think this was the first and most popular, but American Crime Story, The People versus O.J. Simpson. It is so well done. It was very popular. It got a lot of people talking about the case because it focuses on the case and it doesn't focus on the story of OJ and Nicole Brown Simpson. And while it's about that tragedy, it's about the story of the trial of the century is what it was called at that time. For me, it hits in two different prongs. And why I bring it up in the 2010s is one, around that time when it was actually happening and we were in high school, I was considering pre-law instead of music education. I was really interested in being a lawyer. And I tell people now, I think my retirement plan is to go to law school. I am still very nerdy about law. It's probably why I love the true crime stuff, although the true crime stuff also is the other prong. It's horror-based and it's fascinating and it's human nature and it's psychology of how people behave and react and think, which is why I love true crime. It was such a good series. And it really helped us see the court proceedings without the media phenomenon it was at the time in the 90s. So I thought that was really great. And I just wanted to mention it real quick for our true crime nerds that listen to our show. I'm there with you in solidarity.
We are moving on to movies now.
Yes, let's talk about movies. Let's hang a lampshade on the 2010s. This is the decade of Star Wars, and it's the decade of Marvel.
Absolutely.
Superheroes.
Both of these things will be prominent on our list, although I have kind of narrowed myself down to my favorites. But I'll start early in the decade, in 2010. This was a movie that everybody really liked, but the reason they liked it is because it was kind of smart and it was definitely very science fiction-y, and this was Inception. Inception came out and it was so refreshing to see a science fiction movie that asked those questions and made you think, but also kept you guessing and had the twist of what is real and what is not, and has this all been a dream, married with just incredible special effects and action sequences. When we see, now we take it for granted. We watch a Doctor Strange movie or something and all the buildings are folding into each other and the backgrounds are kaleidoscoping out and all that kind of stuff. All of that started with Inception. And it was the first time we saw it, and it was blowing our minds of these action sequences where physics don't have to matter because you're in the dream world, right? It took the Matrix and it took, and just updated it to 15 years later with this awesome story. It's still, you can talk about it even now with like that last scene. Like, does the top actually stop spinning? Does it ever hit the floor? Like all those kinds of things, the ring or whatever it was. People are still talking about Inception. It's a great movie to watch. Cast is fantastic. It's a Christopher Nolan masterpiece. It's awesome to see Christopher Nolan and like his cast of like regulars do something outside of like a superhero movie, but a really cool science fiction movie. Inception. Actually, remember that one?
I've not seen it.
Oh, you'd love it. It's a fantastic film. Yes. I mean, it takes like an action film, but elevates it to this thoughtful, keep them guessing. Yeah. If you've never seen it, like the way it kind of like pulls the rug out from under you at different points in the movie it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's really great.
Well, I'll meet your sci-fi non-related to Star Wars or superheroes and go with the movie Limitless. I do know it's from 2011. I didn't know it was that old, but this stars Bradley Cooper in a storyline where he's kind of a bum and he runs into a guy he knows and he gives him this pill. It's a little Matrix. Take the blue pill, take the red pill. Except it's not Matrix. In this case, he learns that it's this pill that automatically helps him unlock 100% of his brain instead of the 10% we typically use.
Which is bull crap.
Yeah, right.
which is not real.
And it obviously comes with its problems.
Uh-huh.
And he has to navigate a crime empire. And it's beautifully shot, like the colors and the motion and the way they have just physically what it looks like when he's on this pill and when he's not, and the dangers that come with it. And I think it's a really great film. Sometimes I just have it on to have it on. It's beautifully colored and I really like it. Limitless, Bradley Cooper. If you've not seen it, it's usually on Netflix. And when it's on, I'll stream it. Like some of those movies like Shawshank Redemption that I just put on, Limitless is one of those.
Okay.
So it wasn't as popular as Inception, but I thought it was really good.
Elephant in the room. This was the decade of Marvel.
Yes.
Iron Man came out in 2008, I want to say. And then
a few of them came out right before the 2010s. Yes.
Yeah. And then we got Thor and we got Captain America. And then we got another Iron Man 2. And throughout that, we had Black Widow was in there and Agent Coulson and Nick Fury. And they're building this thing. And they were always talking about this is a cinematic universe. You've never seen anything like it. We're going to bring it all together in 2012 with the Avengers. And it's all going to come together. And everybody like me was like, how are they going to do that? That's ridiculous. They can't put all this talent in the same movie and everybody can't be a main character. And the Hulk is going to be in this one? How are they going to do the Hulk? Because that's always looked pretty cheesy and all this kind of stuff. Dave Filoni looked at it and said, who can I get to write the best ensemble piece I can? Tap Joss Whedon for the job. Couldn't agree more. Like, if that's your goal, then that's your guy. And I think it was incredibly successful. I think that it was, of all the movies that came before it, it was a culmination. It was the best one yet. It was over the top. Everybody got their moment, including the minor characters of like the Nick Fury and the Black Widow and the Agent Coulson, who hadn't had their own title movies. They got to stand out and be awesome in this one. Everybody got to be, not only do something cool, but have character development. The Avengers, man, what a time to be alive when that happened and it actually worked.
It worked, and then it just escalated to where you have so much Marvel goop. Thanks, Joss, it's your fault. But I had the Avengers on my list as well. That's because we have it well documented on this podcast that I didn't really watch any of the ones that came before the Avengers, but Buffy fan, I had heard Joss Whedon did the Avengers. I'm like, okay, let's see how this is, because we knew the Hulk flopped with Edward Norton in it. Mm-hmm, how are they going to bring the Hulk back for this? Like, I was really interested in the same manner. How are you really going to have this ensemble cast? If someone could do it, Joss Whedon can. And I went and saw the Avengers in the theaters and loved every second of it. What came after that is all due to the fact that this one film was successful.
And just hugely successful. I can't tell you, man, what a movie.
And all the Marvel universe that happened after it, they did a good job, even though it wasn't Joss moving forward. Every time they hit one of those Avengers films, you could actually just watch the Avengers films and it tells its own story without all the stuff in between. And they did a really good job carrying that through in the same manner that I always said Joss knew how Buffy was going to end when he started it. Those in charge of the Marvel universe knew Endgame.
Yeah.
And how are we going to get there in between with all these films? And, we're going to make all this money doing so. And that really launched with this first film. You're
Avengers absolutely film. Right. And it's so cool of how it mimics like the way comic books work, right? You have your standalone titles and you can follow your favorite hero, but every once in a while there's this giant universe crossover event where everybody comes together. And watching those 4 Avengers films just on their own is insanely cool. And if that's what drew you to it, like, you don't have to go be the nerd to go watch all 3 Iron Man movies or whatever. You could just watch the Avengers movies and be like, I know what I need to know about Marvel and about this team and these super cool heroes, and successful, so fun.
I also put the Avengers on my list, but I want to mention 2 other ones that I thought for me were they're my favorite in the universe. And the first is Black Panther. And Black Panther is because I appreciate and enjoy the representation. I have another movie on this list from the 2010s, regardless of what people think of the movie. The representation is super key for me. And the fact that they have an all Black cast and Black director and, musicians, and even down to the catering company, it had never been done in Hollywood before.
No kidding.
where every single person that helped work on this film was Black. That's huge to me. It's culturally appropriate. It gives us so much in terms of Black culture that it was so well done by Marvel, where it could have been, you hear rumors about how Disney tried to approach Coco the first time, and there was so much backlash to it because they didn't have representation in the people doing the art. And so they had to go backwards to bring in inclusion so that it culturally represented Hispanic culture appropriately. They definitely did not make that mistake with Black Panther. I think the movie's great. It's another one of those that I will just put on because it is visually stunning. The cast was also very well done.
And that movie, like watching that movie makes Avengers Endgame so much cooler when they do the giant fight at Wakanda and you've got the Guardians of the Galaxy in there and all this kind of stuff. It's like, it's so cool that world was so rich and built out so well that they could revisit it again in the big crossover event and have it be just chef's kiss awesome.
Just as good, right? The other one I'll mention real quick is just Deadpool. I don't know. It's funny and
it's unique. It's doing something unique in that comic book movie, that superhero movie space. There's nothing else like it.
Another one where Ryan Reynolds has now at that point had played 2 different superheroes that flopped. Here we go. They're taking a risk, and he's actually the perfect person to play Deadpool. That's another one.
I've never liked Deadpool. The only Deadpool version I like is the Ryan Reynolds version of Deadpool.
Yeah, and this first one, the first one that came out in the 2010s was really well done. That whole sequence of the opening sequence where it's in slow motion while the car is being flipped around and there's all that action happening. It is the most live action of a comic book that you can imagine, because each one of those pieces is like a freeze frame of a comic book. And we hadn't had someone do it that well in a movie before. So I wanted to bring up Deadpool.
Or Sense. I mean, I would make the argument that in the source material for Deadpool, like it's very fourth wall breaking and kind of like wink and nod to the audience. Another comic book like that is She-Hulk. The She-Hulk comic is very much like that. And so they tried to replicate that with the show as well. And it is not successful. That show's okay, but it is definitely not in the top of the auxiliary Marvel Universe stuff that they're doing. It fails at that, where Deadpool succeeds and elevates the source material in that way.
What else you got? You want to talk about our other big genre?
Yeah, because this is funny because we both have one on here and for different reasons. I think mine came out. I don't remember what year yours came out.
Yours came first.
Mine came first. Okay.
I think
I took 2015's The Force Awakens, regardless of how that trilogy ended up all together and what that story ended up looking like, which I don't think was great as a package all the way through. But this movie, The Force Awakens, I've told the story before, I think, on the show, of showing this film to my 6th grade class as part of our writing narratives unit, and putting together like a 3-act and how it could be a 5-act, and looking at character development and the hero's journey and all of these kinds of things I always do. Star Wars: A New Hope. And this year in 2015, I had available to me on DVD or on a streaming service or whatever, like The Force Awakens had just come out. And it was like, all right, well, it's May the 4th. We all watched Star Wars and did a literary analysis of it. Let's have a fun afternoon and watch The Force Awakens. And there were a ton of people, not a ton, but there was a good chunk of that class who had not seen the movie because it was still pretty new and they didn't go to it in the theaters. And the majority of those folks were the girls in my class. When we started watching the movie, it was like, all right, well, this is a fun thing, but we're going to lunch now. And, if you want to be excused, you can. Every single girl in my class stayed to watch that movie and see Rey be a badass and be this hero. I remember that moment of the big fight, the Kylo Ren Rey fight at the end. They're in the forest in the snow, and she reaches out and the lightsaber comes snapping into her hand with her force power, and she lights it up, and there's just this beautiful shot, and all of these girls in my class just cheering and going crazy. It's an experience that like Star Wars gave me, where like I will love Star Wars for the rest of, like I already did, but it was like important in my life, showing me that these girls were so excited about seeing a bad female hero in this universe that had existed since the 70s and was not, it was boy toys and like those kinds of things. But man, I'll never forget that moment. And that movie, standalone, that movie is awesome. It's a great refresh retelling of Star Wars.
And I'm so glad they went with having a female protagonist. It could have been another Luke Skywalker, and they went a different direction. And I know that made a lot of the traditional Star Wars fans really angry. I didn't have that experience watching young girls, but I had that experience as a woman going, oh, she's the chosen one in this series. Great, let's go with it. And I don't care how bad people think those 3 movies are. I like watching them. They're entertaining. If I can sit and forget about my job for 90 minutes and just be entertained by a movie, then I'm good with it. And the fact that it can do it and still continue to use the rules of Star Wars and the galaxy of Star Wars and the universe of Star Wars, whichever of those is appropriate, the fact that they can continue to do so is fine with me, because I knew that those films weren't made for me. Well, also in the 2010s, in terms of Star Wars, my favorite Star Wars film came out, and I don't even know that it was just a streaming movie. I don't know if it was.
Oh no, this was a big theater release. This was awesome. This was like the Star Wars Legends series comes now. Like, you're not going to see your Skywalkers and your Solos in this one. This is the new direction Star Wars is going. It was awesome.
I don't remember it being in the theaters. I watched it on a streaming service. It's probably one of those. I know I was living in Ohio at the time and working on my doctorate, so I didn't go to a lot of movies and missed a lot from that time. Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars feature film. And granted,
I think that's fair.
Standalone, it doesn't work. You can't just watch it and not know, because there are things that hinge on this movie based on your understanding of where it sits before Star Wars: A New Hope and how it's setting everything up for that film to happen. Computer generated Princess Leia at the end just chills. Darth Vader standing there with his lightsaber out and the door closing, and you know what's happening to that ship that's moving away from him. Just, it is so good, and it's well done. It's well written. It reminds me a little bit like a prequel to The Mandalorian, and I don't mean prequel like it leads into it, but it's that dusty, dirty Star Wars of versions of really telling that story that you and I both like the most out of Star Wars. So I love Rogue One. This is a 2010s film, and on my list as one of my nerd favorites.
I love Rogue One because it's so different. And I know for sure it came out in the theaters because it was 2016, which means Andrew was 8 years old. And I remember we had marked kind of like on the calendar, like, when's Andrew going to be old enough to watch Star Wars? And we decided when Rogue One was going to come out, we're like, or like I had watched The Force Awakens and then Rogue One was coming out. And I'm like, it turns out it's 8. 8 is the age where Andrew's going to watch Star Wars. And so knowing that this was going to be the prequel, we watched all 3 Star Wars movies that year in preparation. And we were talking about Star Wars and we did our whole thing. And you know how Andrew is. And so I remember going into this movie and I was like, hey buddy, this movie is before Star Wars and like it doesn't have any of the characters. Luke Skywalker's not in this one, and Princess Leia, she's not in this one. And he goes, yeah. And I was like, so you know what that means? And he goes, what? And I go, it means they're all gonna die. Nobody's gonna make it. And he's like, oh yeah, whatever. And we kind of laughed about it. We're like, oh yeah, in this one, like everybody dies at the end. Like what happens in this one? They all die, like jokingly.
Right.
And then that's really what happened.
Yes.
And that is so different. And for me, so refreshing that we could actually have a tragedy told in a big Hollywood movie on a big, property like that. Was so cool and so refreshing. And honestly, the talks and conversations that Andrew and I have had about that movie, starting when he was 8 years old, like that's the reason why he can come on this podcast and talk about films and movies and stuff, is because he had this opportunity to be like, oh, I love these movies that I watch with my dad. They're all about hero's journey. And then one time they told an absolute, twist the knife in your ribs Shakespearean tragedy in one of them. And it's like, yes, like that's so cool that we could get there.
Yeah, it's so good. It's well thought out. It's unique characters, and it's the same. That this is a death mission, that there's nothing that's going to be gained other than the one thing that needs to be gained in order for A New Hope to take place. It's just so well done. I really love Rogue One.
Who's your favorite Rogue One character? Is it the blind monk dude? I am with the Force, the Force is with me. Is it his buddy with the gigantic like Space Marine machine gun? Is it Jen Erso? Is it what's his face? The Rogue One?
the one dude.
I'll start with mine if you want.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My
the
favorite.
Bot. What about the robot?
Yes, that's mine. K2SO, the robot, voiced by Alan Tudyk, is my favorite character, and his death scene is so good because they all get a death scene, and this one it just absolutely made the ultimate sacrifice. I just love that character, and I love that movie.
I would say if not the Bot, then again, I don't always want to stick to gender roles, but having grown up at a time where there weren't many, Jen Urso as the protagonist in this one is also very intriguing because she also knows the whole time she knows she is not going to survive this, but it matters to her in avenging her father's death. It matters to her in trying to see him one more time. It matters to her in all of those factors that she spends from her childhood to adulthood trying to find her dad. And when she finally does, he's taken from her. And so she knows the mission. For that to be a strong female character versus one who falls apart and needs to be supported and taken along by the arm is a big choice. Yeah, I would have to go with that if not the bot, since you took the bot.
Since I set myself up to take it. Andor is also great. I think Andor is fantastic, but I don't think it's because of that character coming from the Rogue One movie. Like he's fine, but that movie, like Rogue One, is kind of like everything going on around that is really exciting and eye-opening. In the Andor series, it's kind of the same thing. Like he's your point of view character, but all the crazy situations he gets into and like everything that's happening around him and that world building is the strength of it. I think that's where where it carries over from the movie to getting more of the same in the series.
It's so good, and we could keep talking about this forever. I have two more, and you have two more.
Yes.
Why don't you tell me about your two?
My next one is one that's got to be on here. 2015, there was a novel, of course, that became a bestseller, and people were really talking about like, oh, this hard science fiction book and how realistic it is and how a not too distant future a situation might be like this and all these cool ideas. And then we got the movie and you got Matt Damon and he's eating his poop potatoes. And this is The Martian. The Martian it's so funny because at work, everybody has work and everybody probably has some sort of like digital chat that they use, whether it's Slack or Meet or Group, Microsoft, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
You've got like a work chat. And every once in a while, the work chat will just start popping off with like 2 or 3 people in like the big chat, just going back and forth and telling jokes and trying to be silly or whatever while everybody else is trying to work. And you're like, damn it, could you guys take this to a private chat? You realize there's 27 other people watching this conversation. Like, it can be annoying, but it can also be funny. Like, I actually kind of live for that because it's such, every once in a while, a distraction of a couple chuckleheads goofing off in the chat or whatever. But that's how this entire movie starts, is it's this astronaut exploration on Mars, and 2 of the people are goofing on each other and like bagging on each other. And the captain person is like, you 2 need to knock it off. You're really annoying me. You 2 need to knock it off. You're annoying everybody. You know what? I'm turning off the radio. I can't stand you guys anymore. And then the storm comes in.
Oh,
and
geez.
Poor Mark Watley's out there. I need help. I can't make it to the ship. Blah, 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 blah. And she had turned off her radio because 2 people were goofing off. And that's how he got stranded on Mars. And then the whole thing. It's a great movie. The acting is great, both on, of course, on Mars. But then, you know, you have this effort back on Earth to save Mark Watley, and like, how are we going to do it? And what is this rescue mission going to look like? And it's very reminiscent of things. Was it Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
Where they were it's very reminiscent of that, as far as like these trying to make exciting and drama, a bunch of nerdy engineers brainstorming ideas on how to do something that's never been done before to hundreds of thousands of miles away remotely and stuff. It's absolutely cool for the engineering, for the hard science, and then of course just the silliness of the science fiction of it and how he survives.
You know, that's a Titanic story, right?
No.
So Telegraph controller on the Titanic was getting so many iceberg warnings. He just started being a jerk to these, like, we got it. Stop sending this, that they all turned their telegraph. And so when it hit the iceberg and they were trying to get to the ships, there were ships that were way close to them, but he had ticked off their receiver so much that they stopped picking up messages from the Titanic. So the closest ship was hours away that couldn't get there till after the ship had sunk. That's a real life history.
Wolf situation.
Mm-hmm. It also is the story of the first SOS telegraph was new to the ship industry. So when people weren't responding to the traditional help calls, Captain Smith goes, do that new one, do that SOS signal, and finally a ship picked them up. That's what I was thinking about when you started the premise of The Martian. Not seen it, not read it, but has been on my list to read and watch forever.
Oh yeah, that's another one. It's just one of those movies that I think people should see. You know, it's just, I think it's kind of one of those touchstone, like Americana movies. Hundreds of thousands of people both read that book and millions of people saw that movie. Like, it's a good touchstone, like, put it on
Sandra
your list
Bullock,
of things.
right?
Maybe.
Matt Damon and Sandra Bullock?
Now that you mention it, I would be hard pressed to know if there is a single female character in that movie.
Oh, I might be thinking about the wrong film.
Matt Damon and Jessica Chastain.
There's a female, but it's not Sandra Bullock.
Kristen Wiig. Scrolling, looking for another female
Mostly
character.
dudes. Well, I know I asked you for your last two, but I'll go off of one of mine very quickly. Also based off of a book is The Hunger Games. This series came out in the 2010s. Popular book, very popular film. I have not read the books, but to my understanding is they are decent adaptations of the films, are decent adaptations of the books. I think they're really great films. Just another whole universe of nerds who love The Hunger Games. I enjoy watching them. I
love The Hunger
Games. Way it ends. I don't like the way it ends. I think the ending's kind of but
okay.
I love it all the way leading up to the very end.
Yeah, I read the books first before the movies were out because I was a 6th grade teacher and it was like a young adult thing that everybody was reading, and they were talking about like, oh, it's this post-apocalyptic world and there's this chick with a bow and she's like shooting people, and then it's this whole kids have to murder each other and the thing. I'm like, what is happening right here? So this was also back in the time. I know that you've seen pictures, so you know they're real. Listeners will not believe this at all, but there was a time where I was a little bit fit and I was running on a regular basis. I would do like 5Ks on the weekends and things like, you wouldn't believe it. But there was this period of time when it happened, and those Hunger Game books kept me company on those runs.
Oh,
like whatever couple of years those were the Hunger Game years for Rob, because I listened to all 3 of those books doing runs.
Well, one of my favorite Stephen King novellas is called The Long Walk, which is not like the Hunger Games because it's not about killing each other, but it's that dystopian idea where you are going into something that you're most likely going to die to represent your people. So I won't say much more about The Long Walk, but the Hunger Games really reminded me some of that. And the way they show her with trauma in the second movie, having killed people, the way how they break down this whole universe and this whole position of power is all very intriguing, and it's all very well done. And what a monster cast. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of my favorite actors, plays a great role in this. And, you know, so many good actors in this whole series. But The Hunger Games, 2010s.
All right, my last one to bring my list home. Listeners of the show can probably already guess what it is. This is, of course, the greatest superhero movie ever made. Perhaps the greatest animated film ever created.
Ooh.
This is my absolute favorite thing, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is great for a number of reasons, but one of the greatest reasons is because it walks this perfect balance and this absolute masterclass in here's something everyone is familiar with. We're going to update it and revamp it and rejuvenate it, but we're not going to take away anything that you already love from these characters. We're going to take Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man. You like Peter Parker Spider-Man, like the hero that you're used to, he's in this one. You like Peter Parker is kind of like oh man, the Parker luck schlubby down on his luck, you know, nothing ever goes right. We got that one. You want a new one that's young and in high school and giving you those Peter Parker stories. We got that. This time his name's Miles Morales. You want to see an origin story where an uncle dies. We got that, but it's going to be new and it's going to rip your heart out and throw it on the floor. It's such a cool movie, and visually, the first one and the second one even cranks it up a notch.
Stunning.
But visually stunning. Unlike anything else that anybody is doing. It takes risks. It's creative. It's beautiful. The music is outstanding. The voice acting is wonderful. And it is just an absolutely awesome, perfect superhero story for those of us who love Spider-Man and those of us who want to learn about what Spider-Man is.
I appreciate a lot in the 2010s about representation. Miles Morales hangs a lampshade on that in representation, having a Black father and a Hispanic mother, and being a teenager in the 2010s. And this movie is so visually beautiful. And I actually used it a lot. This is around the time I moved back home and started working at schools there and living in town for the first time in 23 years. And people asked me, what's it like being back home after all this time? I would use the reference to this in this movie when it's glitching between Miles Morales' universe and other universes, is what it was like being around buildings that I knew were something else. And now we're like a restaurant, or that building is gone. Like I would see those visions of what the building used to look like and then what was actually actually there. And it's such a good movie.
It's an absolutely great movie all the way from top to bottom. It is a movie that has multiple points in it that will just give me goosebumps or make my eyes water. I will say, to have this movie that celebrates Spider-Man and everything Spider-Man, and also have a huge part of the movie, Spider-Man dies.
Right.
At the end of Act 1, Spider-Man
with that, yes.
dies,
Yes.
and it's like this insane, gut-wrenching moment. And I think I've mentioned it before when we've done other like top fives and favorites and things. When I think of fight scenes, right? Like, what's your favorite fight scene, or what's that memorable like superhero battle? That moment of Miles Morales and his dad in the booth, "Get up, Spider-Man." Oh, it just gets me every time. It's so good. "Get up, Spider-Man" is the greatest superhero fight I have ever seen in comics or movies or anything.
It was so good that they started with the death of Spider-Man, because it let you know it's very possible any one of them can also die. That whole scene was so much heavier because Spider-Man dies at the beginning. Miles Morales could die.
That's a very good point. I think that really does help set the stakes for that movie. And of course, there was the Spider-Verse comic book crossover, which was very similar, and then followed up by Spider-Geddon, and which is like a silly name, but a fantastically awesome comic book series that has that same idea of like all the Spider-Men from all the different multiverses come, and a truckload of spider people die in that one. Like, wow. It's rough. All right, bring us home. What's your last one?
Real quick, something that's not a great movie, and I'm happy to also say that, but we had Wonder Woman in the 70s, 80s with Linda Carter. It took a very long time for DC to decide to bring it back out, but in the 2010s, we get Wonder Woman standalone film done very well by Gal Gadot. It itself, the movie could be, I mean, it's the same as the Star Wars movies, right? Like, okay, it's made for a new generation, but Wonder Woman is such an impactful superhero. It's one of the few early female superheroes that we have in any superhero universe. And I thought it was done really well. Just awesome to see a badass female and not be dainty. I thought Linda Carter was a little bit dainty, right? She was still very feminine, and Gal Gadot is very feminine, but also they really do a better job of displaying muscular Amazonian type women starting in her native land where they're all learning to battle and be righteous.
The cool part about the Wonder Woman movie is Wonder Woman is Diana is always Diana. When we look at the Linda Carter series, we were doing the superhero trope of like, you have to have a secret identity. Right. So secret identity Diana was demure and ladylike and could fit in so that she was hiding her identity, where the movie does a better job of, no, this is a fish out of water story. She's always a badass warrior, and that's what makes her like stick out, and that leads to those good questions we ask about society whenever we have art, but it also provides a lot of the levity and like comedy in that movie as well. It's like they look at women in our society and think it's ridiculous, because it is.
Right. And every decision she makes in that film is 100% as that Amazonian woman and not as Clark Kent, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. When we have our list here, Rob, and I know you have more to talk about, and you know that I have more to talk about. And so listeners, you need to know bonus episode next Wednesday for our subscribers. So go to patreon.com/nerdbestfriends, subscribe, listen to that bonus episode next week.
We'll keep the conversation going. Thank you for subscribing to that subscriber exclusive content. We will see you over there. What's the nerdiest thing you did this week, Analese?
It's Spook-tober.
Okay.
It is the month of horror. I am watching horror movies every night. And every October, I've made it a point. Final Girl is the only game on my table this month. And now that my nerd room is one that I can enclose away from my cat, it's just staying out. And I'm grabbing the next feature film. And here we are mid-October, and I have played at least 3 vignettes a week. So it's mostly on the weekend. Mostly on the weekends, because it's really hard to get a game going. Final Girl is one that can be done in 20 minutes. or it can be an hour and a half, depending on how the cards go and how you do as the choices you make. I really love this game. And Series 3 was supposed to be here by October, but obviously Kickstarters never work that way in 2025, early 2025. They're saying maybe February at this point. But that's okay because I have a lot to paint still. So I'm good with waiting, but I really like this game. I'm still really thankful to you for finding it in a time that I could join in Series 2 and whatever it was. I have it. The nerdiest thing I did this week is all tabletop solo gaming, and it's all Final Girl with my horror movie instrumental playlists on Apple Music and Spotify playing through, and
very cool.
Getting all LED lights everywhere in the nerd room. And I love spook-tober.
You can really watch. Wait, so how many movies are you really watching? Because you said you put a horror movie on every night. It can't possibly be
we try
night.
every
Really?
night. We try.
Wow.
It does get a little hard. One thing that recently happened, which I'll talk about in the bonus episode, there's one that I had to watch over the course of a couple days. So we're not really strict to every night. And then some of them are October-ish movies, like Hocus Pocus is not really a horror movie, right?
No, but it's a Halloween
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Practical Magic is one we watch in October every year. So there's some that are not slasher horror movies that we try to watch every night.
Okay. Bonus question. Follow up. Nightmare Before Christmas. Christmas movie or Halloween movie?
Ooh, I go with Christmas movie since Christmas is in the title, and because they live in Halloween town and they're trying to do something different than Halloween.
Okay.
What about you? What do you categorize it as?
I don't. I never know. I never know when the right time is, so we never watch it.
Fair. What's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
I think a few episodes ago, I was talking about how Barnes & Noble and Target have these Games Workshop exclusive board games where you can get the same miniatures from Warhammer and 40K and all these kinds of things, but they'll be like much more affordable and in like a different standalone kind of easy version of a game. And so
you were talking about your quests, right? You were talking about like traveling down around Southern California to pick up these exclusives.
Right. So I had this quest, like, gotta catch them all. I gotta collect all of these different board games. I think I sent you a picture the other day of like 13 of them all stacked on the table now because I have been successful in finding all of these games.
Yes.
One of these games is called Blitz Bowl. It is a fantasy football type game. And when I say fantasy, I mean like high fantasy of elves and dwarves and orcs and goblins make up the little football squads. And it's a spin-off of the game Blood Bowl, which is like the big giant table kind of thing. But Blitz Bowl is this like little self-contained version of it that's supposed to be very manageable. We're of course all up in football season and our fantasy football teams and stuff like this. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really excited about Blitz Bowl and all these cool teams. So I've got 2 boxes of Blitz Bowl, which means I have 4 little football teams. And when you open the box, there's all these cards and stuff. And one of the card packs doesn't just have the cards for the 2 teams that come in the box. It's a stack, and it's got the cards for all of the Blitz Bowl teams. There's like 21 of them or something.
Oh my gosh.
So of course I'm like, oh my gosh, which ones am I going to collect? Which ones do I have to go get? And then which high fantasy football team lines up with each real NFL team? Because if I'm going to paint these, I need a paint scheme. I've got to paint them in, NFL team colors. So we've got dwarves. What are dwarves? Dwarves are miners, 49ers. The dwarves are going to be painted up red and gold like the 49ers.
Wow.
There's a chaos team, and the chaos teams are like these beast men with these big like goat horns and things. Like, those are the Rams, gonna be blue and yellow.
Jeez.
Those are the Rams. There's an ogre team where it's all these like super big bruiser guys. Ogres, giants. Those guys are gonna get painted up like right. It's kind of making sense. Right?
I think I know where you're going with this now. Okay.
So of course, I had to spend an evening planning out all of the fantasy football teams, lining them up with which NFL team they are, creating a spreadsheet with color coding. Analese,
okay, listeners,
you're going to have to take it from here.
This is a screenshot. On the very far right has all of the NFL teams listed with their city, state name, and their mascot name. And on the left is the Blitz Bowl team how they would describe it. Are they an orc team? Are they an undead team? Halfling, so on and so forth. And in between these two are the NFL team Rob has matched to the type of beings, creatures they are, and then the color scheme from that NFL team. This is hilarious. So you spent a night, and you don't have all 20 teams, but you wanted to name all 20.
So it looks like there are 19 Blitz Bowl teams.
19 teams, okay.
So, but this is all the teams that came in the box and all the NFL teams, so that as I collect them, I'll have a plan on color schemes.
So which ones did come in your exclusive boxes?
So currently I have the Orc team, and that's the first one I'm painting. Steelers. Because it's orc-tober, so I'm going to paint them up as the Steelers.
I've got spook-tober, you've got orc-tober.
It's orc-tober, so I'm painting those guys up. After that, the other one that came in the box with the orcs is the dwarves. So the dwarf team down here, like I said, Miners, 49ers, so paint them up in red or gold. The other Blitz box I have is the Skaven team, which are little...
What's a Skaven?
They're little rat men.
Okay.
And they ended up being the Eagles. Listen, me and ChatGPT had a very long night trying to argue back and forth on which teams these were gonna end up as. But basically, the green and silver kind of paint scheme like really jives with these like.
So you went with the color on this one versus
sometimes.
Okay. All right.
The logic behind any of this is very dubious.
They could have been the Texans.
Equally dubious. And then the other one that came with that was just the very classic, like the human team. And so I decided for those guys, I'm going to go with Patriots. With like
that makes sense.
Red,
That's
white,
good.
and blue.
That's good.
So those are the 4 teams I have. Of course, the next team that I want to recruit is the Chaos team, which has all the like goatmen in it to paint them up like the Rams, because that's just too perfect for me.
What's a Nurgle? What's the Nurgle team?
So the Nurgle team and the Khorne team are very Warhammer. So Nurgle is like a chaos god of like rot and decay and disease and stuff like that.
That sounds like the Browns.
It could be, but they kind of have their own paint scheme. That's why those are like NA, because they're very Nurgle, and Nurgle is green and putrid and puke green kind of thing. So that's just the way it is. The Khorne team is the same way. Khorne is a chaos god, and they're always red because it's blood for the blood god and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, I'll probably never get those teams unless they come in one of these board games or whatever, because I'm not as interested in the 40k lore. I'm interested in like getting a ridiculous team of ogres like running around with footballs and cauldrons.
Yeah, we gotta play this game. Let me know when it's done. We're gonna play. I can't wait.
You're absolutely gonna love it.
But the nerdiest thing you did is not the collection of these, because you did that in your quest a handful of weeks ago. The nerdy thing is not opening them up and getting them all set up to paint. The nerdy thing is that you created a spreadsheet to
the nerdy thing is the spreadsheet, and and I mean, listen, it was a whole thing. I had all the cards laid out on the table. I had my spreadsheet. I had ChatGPT open, because there were some that made a lot of sense, right? Like I filled in probably 8 or 10 of these, like, oh yeah, this, and then it was like, all the teams left are birds. You ever realize how many birds are in the NFL?
In the NFL, yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. How many birds and how many like feline type animals?
It's all birds and cats.
For more nerd watching, join us on Patreon for our subscriber bonus episode. Every season, we focus on a superhero. This season's superhero focus is Captain Marvel. So read up on those comics, rewatch the films or shows, and join us next episode for great banter and more nerdy things that we do that week. Stay in the loop with Nerd Best Friends by hitting that subscribe or follow button on your device. We absolutely love our fans, especially those who spread the word and drop us those sweet 5-star ratings. Connect with us on social media at Nerd Best Friends, or send us a message at podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Let's grow our nerd family and keep the geeky fun going strong. This was so much fun, Rob. Thank you for nerd watching with me. Another one down.
Awesome decade of awesome movies. Thanks for listening, everybody.
See you next time. And now when you watch the Oscars and the Academy Awards, wait, those are the same.
There's oh my gosh, I don't even know what I was talking about. People coming in here with dogs and